Welcome. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Rise with Hope. I'm the host, Aisha Nixon. This is my autumn series. There is beauty in change. I've been doing these sessions or this series for the past few weeks, and tonight I am honored to have another guest with us this evening. I just want to tell you a little bit about this series before we get to our guest. And so, with this series, it is a series where women they have experienced change, and not only change, but a beauty that has come out of it. Ladies, these sessions are for you. These conversations are to encourage you, to inspire, and to empower you. Every Thursday evening from 8 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ladies, you know what I'm going to say. It's going to be a it's going to be a conversation where it will need you to just get a bit comfortable and also to grab your hot drink, whether it's hot chocolate, tea, coffee, whatever it might be, because we're in for a treat this evening. And so, ladies, we're going to get started. Tonight, I have the honor to welcome Amanda Beazer. Amanda, welcome.
Hey, hey guys. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here tonight with you, Aisha.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. And we are going to get started. Ladies, let's find out a bit about who Amanda Beazer is. Amanda, can you tell us three things about who you are?
Well, currently, I am a registered nurse. And so I deal particularly, my area of expertise is cancer care. That means I administer chemotherapy at this time and do it's administering chemotherapy, but doing a lot more than just the administration process. So I do a lot of things in relation to my current position. I'm a proud aunt to six. I have I have two nieces and four nephews and countless others who call me auntie, which I thoroughly enjoy, which I thoroughly enjoy all the time. And I love singing. I really
Awesome.
enjoy it. That is one of my passions, which I do right now at my brother-in-law's ministry, which is CovRemMin Ministries, and um, I lead the worship there at CovRemMin
Awesome.
Ministries. So that's my ministry right there.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And so, ladies, you've got a little bit taste of who Amanda is, and she's going to be sharing more about her journey. So, Amanda, before you get into the change that you've experienced, can you give us the background story, the background information that led up to the change?
Well, it was a point in my life where it revolves around singleness. And so I was at a point in my life where I've spent a majority of my life, God, when am I going to get married? I saw my sister get married. I saw my brother get married. It was all involved in the process. And so it's kind of like the years were passing and I was like, God, hmm, there's something wrong here.
Mhm.
And so it was not an easy road. It was just years of, God, there must be something wrong with me.
Mhm.
Kids that I taught in Sunday school, God, are getting married. I was like, God, what's going on? My nephews, they're dating. Like, God, what's going on with
Yeah.
me? And it was probably some very dark years, very angry with God.
Mhm.
And I was like, God, this is not fair. I've had my temper tantrums. I'm pretty sure God was sitting on his throne and goes, here she goes again. And so it was a season of, God, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, I don't like it. And you need to hurry up and find me a man because I'm all by myself here, Jesus, and I don't like it. And then just this year, everything just started to turn around. Like it just started to
Mhm.
just change. I think this was not enlightenment. I just began to dig deep where God's placed a ministry in my mind. He told me about it, and I said, "No way,
Th-
God."
Wow. Well, before you go on, and let's keep the ladies on a cliffhanger at this point, I just want to touch on a few things that you mentioned. And ladies, as you heard Amanda say, years went by. And ladies, this can be in so many different areas of our lives where we have dreams, we have desires, goals that we have. prayers that we may have prayed to the Lord and have not seen the
Mm,
answer. We have not seen the accomplishment of something, and years can go by. And like Amanda, having that emotion of anger, of frustration, of wondering and even thinking, okay, is there something wrong with
mm,
me? Right. And so maybe some of you can identify with what Amanda went through in regards to that. And also, even just in her having a conversation with God, I want to touch on that. It's so
mhm,
important to not pretend that we feel good,
mhm,
but to be real with the Lord and let Him know how we
mhm.
are actually feeling about
That's right.
whatever it is that you're going through, that you're not happy about. You may be disappointed. You're wondering why. It just seems like everyone else is passing you by, and they're getting, in this case, getting married. In
Mhm,
your case, it could be something else. And it's like, everyone is getting whatever it is that you're desiring, and your hands are still empty. But we're going
mhm.
to hear from Amanda the change that occurred, and then the beauty that has come out of it. And so, Amanda, I know you spoke about having dark days and so
Mm.
forth. And so, before we even go into the change that happened, how did you get through that time or those seasons where you had dark days?
A lot of I have a very supportive family. It was
Mhm.
mainly my sister
Mhm.
and my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, Pastor Dean, my sister, Reverend Jackie. And so many a times I would go to them and I'd be half the time I'd be like crying, like, Jackie, I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on with me. And Jackie, I just feel this is how I felt. And many times I would just say, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah.
And so I had the two of them. I had my mom
Mhm.
there as well. And so I many times I just, your mom's your mom. And she's like, your day will come, your day will come. It was really, a family that was supportive and just
Yes.
sort of helped me realize, see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
They said, well, you don't know what's God doing. I said, I don't care what God's doing right now. I want what I want now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was always a constant confirmation. My sister, we'd have these conversations many times, and it was her reaffirming, like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what God's doing, so you just have to stay the course. And a lot of conversations with God, like in the car, I'm like, people must be looking at me thinking, what is wrong with that girl? Because I'd be like in the car, like, Jesus. I'd be like, Jesus. Like, people, my hands are moving and I'll be like, crying in the car. And people be like, is she all right? Is she okay? And that was just, driving home
Yeah.
from work with my opportunity to have candid conversations with
Yes.
God and say,
Yes.
God, what's going on here?
Mhm.
So a lot of conversations with God and a lot of support from from family say, you know what, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. God is not finished with you yet. Just, waiting is great when you're not the person waiting. When someone's telling you to wait, you're like, but you got what you got. So
Yeah.
you telling me to wait? I said, so that was a fun time.
I hear you. I hear you. Ladies, you heard what Amanda said. And we can go through dark days. And as Amanda said, she had a awesome support system, and
Mhm.
as well, just constant conversation with God. And thirdly, her sister reaffirming her that there is nothing wrong with her. And sometimes we need that, to others to reaffirm us, because we may
Mhm.
know it, but when you're going through times and you feel weak emotionally or mentally or even
Mhm.
spiritually, it is important that you have the right people speaking truth
That's right.
into your life, into your situation, just to help you through the journey.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's good that you shared that, Amanda, because sometimes we do go through dark days,
Mhm.
having, and we need that support system. We can't go through it alone.
Definitely not. No.
We can't.
You need that backing sometimes. I know
Hmm.
I've spoken to many other people who are
Hmm.
like, my family kind of don't understand. And depending on your household and sometimes your
Yes.
culture that's involved and that
Yeah.
they don't like what's going on here. And sometimes
Hmm.
there isn't that support. So
Hmm.
leaning for those who know God, or have that support system, it's really good to have someone behind you that says, it's okay. What
Yeah.
you're going through is okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Like this too this too will pass. This
Right.
too, you know,
Yeah.
it will get better.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just a process, and you have to sort of just go the process and see
Right.
what what happens.
Exactly. And so you said that the Lord dropped a ministry into your lap, or that um,
Mhm.
he shared, what would you say that he shared with you, Amanda?
Well, I remember being at home on the
Mm.
couch, and I was like, okay, God, I should be doing something more productive with I wasn't even thinking about it. And all of a sudden I heard this thing, a single servant. I said, a single servant? What's that? You talking to me? You talking to me, God? You okay, so single servant. And so it was one of those moments where you're like, you're kidding God. And even as it was just going over in my mind with it. A singles ministry, Jesus? Are you for real? And you want me to get up and talk to people about something that I ain't even happy about. I said, God, we gotta talk about this one. We gotta really contemplate this. And Aisha, I wrote it down
Mhm.
and I sat on it.
Mhm.
Sat on it. I'm pretty sure I sat on it for about maybe a year and a half.
Mhm.
It was some time passing, and every time it would come back,
Mhm.
my cousin would talk to me from the States, and she'd be like, I said, I came up with this idea. And she was just blown away by it. And she's just like, wow, you have to get on. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
Because I'd be like, like she would encourage me.
Mhm.
My good friend Diane would be the same thing. She'd be like, so Diane does this thing. So, so what are you doing with it? And I just said, God, you got to be. I like this is not something that I want to broadcast.
Yeah.
That getting up and talking about singles because it's a sore spot for me. This is
Yes.
nothing that I could. There's nothing that I could share
Mhm.
joyfully to anybody about being
Mhm.
single. I
Mhm.
said, sorry, God, I have to give this one some thought.
Yeah.
And so I think God's like, yeah, you think about it, but you're doing it. You can think about it, but you doing it. And my girlfriend Diane, she came behind me, my good friend from way back. She's like, so when are we getting on this? And she said she picked the date. She goes, oh yeah, this year you're doing it. I was like, can we talk about? No, we're not talking about it. You're doing it, and that was the launch of a single serving.
Interesting. And so, ladies, you heard God planted that ministry in Amanda to do, and something that, as Amanda said, she wasn't ready to do it. She didn't want to talk about it because for her, as she said, it was a sore spot and something that she was going through, right? And dealing with in terms of emotions and terms of unanswered prayer requests, questions that she's had, um but she knew that the Lord gave her this ministry to do. And then
Mhm,
with the help of her cousin and her friend who were encouraging her, just being able to say, yeah, you're gonna do it, and so
mhm,
forth. Um she did go forth with it, but it took time. And ladies, sometimes the Lord may tell us to do something that it's in an area where it's like, are you kidding me? I'm not an expert in that area, or
mhm,
that I don't want to actually share that part of my life with others because it's hard, it hurts, and I have to be vulnerable and transparent. And so we're going to hear from Amanda what that looked like when she actually did begin the ministry. And so what did that look like for you, Amanda, as the ministry unfolded and you got going with it?
I think I think I was thinking too hard,
Mhm.
and I was planning things and doing things. I go, I just have to present it perfectly. Like I think in those moments that we're preparing for our sessions online, it's like I was just, it had to be a certain way. And so as the first session came along and I was like, I don't know, like I think I was so nervous to the point of tears. And I'm like, God,
Okay.
what advice can I offer somebody else? Like what? Yeah, okay, I'm single, yeah. But what else can I talk to them about?
Mhm.
And as it's been going, I just said, God, I'm pouring a lot of knowledge into this, like worldly knowledge. And it's like, you need to speak from your experience, like speak
Mhm.
from what you've been going through. So
Mhm.
it was then when I'm kind of like, God, I just need to let go of this and you need to lead me. So every time I was preparing, it's like, God, you have to lead me in what to say, because I'm just like, I've got a lot to be researching and doing things, when God's like, listen, talk from your heart, talk from your experience, and then I'll begin to add. And so as I was preparing for the sessions, God was beginning to just drop things in my mind, drop things in my heart. I'm like, oh God, this is good. And I've been able to go back to scripture and even just expound scripture. Like, okay, God, I've never seen this before. Like, Paul talks about it in Corinthians. It's like, okay, being content. Like, if you're single, what you should be doing when you're single, spending more time with the Lord. And and I just began to say, you know what, God, this isn't that bad. Like, there's a lot. Like, I think for me, it's like, God, there wasn't a lot. I didn't see the beauty behind being single. Like, on it, I was like, Aisha, I was just like, you're kidding me, Jesus. I said, I didn't see the advantages of being single. I didn't see what God was showing me while I was single, because I was so concentrating on the fact that I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm by myself, God. Anything that I need to do, I need a man to help me to do this. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, God has a ministry for everybody. Everybody's life is different.
Yes.
I'm speaking from my perspective in that, I didn't see that there was advantages, and there was things that God was showing me that I sort of just, I don't want to hear it, God. I don't want to deal with it. And I found that delving into singles ministry, God began to open my eyes and say, Amanda, you're worth something. There's a lot that you need to be doing in this season. I don't know how long this season is going to be, but in this season, I'm growing, and I'm just like, God, this is like, I've tapped into areas that I thought, God, I kind of don't have the expertise on that. And God has brought people on board to help me. Like, I've gotten ideas from my sister and my friend Diane and Dean, and just, it's beginning to sort of get the momentum. And I think people are just like, the singles ministry in church. For those who are watching, y'all know the single ministry in church, right? Everybody comes thinking they're going to meet somebody, right? Or it's sort of like, okay, it's all the women, we're the men. And so it was that I just wanted to move away from that. This is not a matter. If you meet somebody, you meet somebody. But my goal here is to help you maximize the time that you have in this season, in order to, number one, grow closer to God, in order to see what in that season. You don't have kids, maybe you do have kids. There's singles, you could be divorced, you could be widowed, you could be single again, or maybe even dating. You're kind of like, well, I'm in a relationship, not sure if I should be in this relationship. So it's kind of, I want you to grow as an individual. Maturity comes, in this season. Not to say that you're immature, but the season of singleness is a time where, God, it's me and you. This is time, like, God, this is me and you. What do you want me to do in this season? And so that's what I've kind of focused on. It's like, you're single, you're worthy. You've got something that God has you to do. Waiting on somebody to fulfill it, whether it be a wife or a husband, that's time that God can be using to propel you. Maybe it's time for you to start a business. Maybe it's time for you to go back to school. Maybe it's time for things for you to be doing while you are currently unattached. Even people with children, I mean, God might be calling you in that season to do something. I don't think that it requires a partner, like a husband or a wife, in order to do that, that God does have something to do for you to do at that time. And so I'm just kind of bringing the joy back. You know what? It's kind of nice to be single. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's good I'm glad that you shared that. I'm just going to touch personally on me experiencing being single as well. And it was for many years. And as Amanda said, sometimes it's like, when is it my turn? And so I went through that. I know what Amanda's talking about when she talks about the tears and the hard times and so forth. But what I want to touch on is when Amanda said about maximizing your potential and doing something in that season. A lot of times we may put on hold, okay, when I get married, but you know what? There are things, as Amanda said, that you could be doing in that season. I know for me, I traveled, I wrote a book, I published it, and I just did many different things. And as Amanda said, it is a time of growth. And so ladies, she's encouraging you. And even if there
Mm.
are any men watching, right? Because your ministry is for both men and women,
Yeah, men and women.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that she has encouraged you to be doing, and to ask God, what is it that you want me to be doing? How should I be growing? And more importantly, you know, taking the time to grow closer to the Lord, which is so important.
Mhm.
Amanda, what are two things, because through this process, through this journey, as you are as you are ministering through this ministry, I'm sure that there are lessons that you've learned along the way. And I'd like it if you can share with us two lessons that you've learned in being single. And also, if you want to talk about the ministry, but just two
Mhm.
lessons. Hmm.
Um, Self-worth. I
Awesome.
think one thing was self-worth,
Hmm.
because I'm telling you, there was moments where I felt like, you know what, God, I'm, how do I best describe it? It's sort of like I felt like I was not worth anything because I was by myself. Like
Yeah.
people are looking at me. I mean, and I look back on it now,
Hmm.
and you know, for those of us who, you grew up in the church and, got the mothers of the church and you say, girl, when are you going to get married? Like, what's wrong with you? And so, I mean, at those points, I took it to heart. Like, there is something wrong with me. And I felt
Hmm.
as if I couldn't bring anything to the table. I felt like I didn't have any value.
Yes.
Like, I just felt because I'm a single woman, I don't have any value.
Hmm.
And so during this process, I was like, you know what, God, I have a lot to bring to the table.
Awesome.
I have a lot to bring. I'm like, God, I am overflowing
Awesome.
with goodness.
Yes.
And I just learned to, like, it's just loving yourself. It's
Yeah.
really learning to
Hmm.
love yourself. And you are worthy. Like, you are worthy. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things I said, God, before I never felt like that because I felt like I was sort of lower on the totem pole here.
Yeah.
Like, that's just that saying that says that, but lower down because I wasn't married. And God's like, no, pick yourself up, girl. You have value. And you
Yes.
are worth, that commercial, you're worth it, man. You worth it. And so that's one of the things that I learned. And I know, and contentment.
Mm.
This is something that I'm learning. I mean, some
Mhm.
days it's tough because sometimes I'll be at home and I'm like, why? I wish somebody here would come and take out my garbage. And like, I'm just tired of having to come home and mow my grass. But I'm just learning that these are things that need to be done.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, you know what, God, I'm not there yet, but I'm learning to be content because it's a season that I'm in,
Mhm.
and that God is teaching me you are not alone, Amanda.
Yeah.
You are not by yourself in this.
Mhm.
And so contentment comes where I'm like, okay, God, you know what? I do have the freedom to come and go as I please. I do have the freedom to do it, be alone and be quiet. And there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. And
Yes.
so I sort of begin to be content in those moments where I'm like, you know what? Tonight, it's me and you. Okay, and I hate to confess, and a Hallmark movie. Okay?
Mhm.
So I like my Hallmark movies. And it's Christmas Hallmark movies. And so I'll come home and I'm content with being by myself. Like,
Mhm.
it's okay. Like, my mom would always ask me, she goes, aren't you lonely? I'm like, no. Mm-mm. I said, Mom, I'm good. Like, I'll be out even with my siblings and my family. Well, it's time to go home. Where are you going? I said, I'm going home. To do what? But I sit down and just be quiet. It's okay. It's okay to be alone,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
just as my brother-in-law says, it's okay, Amanda, just don't stay there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Be
Yeah.
happy because if you can't be happy with yourself,
Mhm.
by yourself, you're not going to be happy in another relationship. You
Mhm.
can't be happy when your husband and wife comes along because you haven't gotten contentment. Let's say your husband had to go travel. Let's say your wife had to go travel. You
Mhm.
have to learn to be happy in the skin that you're in, that
Yeah.
it's okay to be alone,
Yes.
and it's okay. It's happiness, it's joy. Because I hear women say all the time, she goes, listen, I got kids. When my kids go away, woo, it's good, right? And so those are the moments where you're growing to just say,
Mhm.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to be by myself at this
Mhm.
time. It's okay to be by myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people don't like it.
Mhm.
I've learned that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of, love the skin you're in. And so that's where I'm sort of learning to be growing to be content. I mean,
Yeah.
there's moments where I get upset about it and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my God, Friday night, I'm by myself. But then I'm like, okay, you know what? It's Friday night. I'm going to spend time with myself. It's a busy week. I've had so much going on. I never had time for myself.
Yeah.
So sitting down and I say, God, it's me and you, Jesus. Pull up. Pull up, God. Me and you tonight. What you want to watch? So that's where it just self worth and self value and learning to be content in this season.
Awesome lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And ladies, that can apply to anything that we may be going through, right? Thinking that we're not enough. But as Amanda, as she has told us this evening, self worth is important, that we do have something to bring to the table, that
That's
we
right.
are worth it. And contentment is so important. Yeah, it is. Because with contentment, it's there's jealousy and envy are not there at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just being able to be satisfied with where you're at that present moment, right?
That's
Knowing
right.
that in time God will bring change, answer prayer, shift things around the way
That's
that
right.
he desires according to his will and his purpose.
That's right.
um Amanda, this has been an amazing conversation, and you've
Mm-hmm.
been very transparent and vulnerable with sharing your journey and the ministry, a single serving that has come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that those who are watching are being blessed and
Mm-hmm.
encouraged by what you have shared.
Amen.
And you know what? There may be someone who's watching, Amanda, who is having a hard time. And let's
Mm-hmm.
just say, in this case, being single, having a
Mm-hmm.
hard time being single. um, Before we just come to an end,
Mm-hmm.
can you share with her and just speak directly to her? Can you share with her um, some advice, a piece of advice that you can give to her to encourage her this evening?
I would say the biggest thing is really get in with God.
Hmm.
Really get in with God. I mean, I hovered around the periphery for a long time, and God was calling me, just come and talk to me about these things. And I felt embarrassed. Believe me, I felt really embarrassed
Hmm.
talking to God. But God loves us when we talk from the heart. God
Yes,
is a God of our hearts. And even though you can talk to God with your lips, God knows your heart.
that's
And
right.
that's what God desires for, the men and the women who are going to be watching this is that, you know what?
Hmm.
Talk to me. Talk to me. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to get on your knees. You don't have to, feel like it has to be a positional thing. There's moments when you're like, God, I've gone to a lot of weddings and I have to step away and like, God, I really not liking this situation right now.
Hmm.
But God, help me through this.
Hmm.
And God will help you. He promised in his word that he would never leave us nor forsake us.
Amen.
God knows your heart and he knows the desires of your heart, but you
Hmm.
got to talk to him.
Yes.
You could talk to your friends, you could talk to your girlfriends and everything, but God's like, come and talk to me first, please,
Yeah.
and let me know how you're feeling today. And I mean, in those moments where I've talked to God, and I just felt like I was going to get an answer back, God would send somebody into me and say, you know what, man, I just want to encourage you today. And I'll just cut to my, somebody would just encourage me today, and I'd be like, God, so, and that's what God does.
Yeah.
Because he said, I see your pain, I feel your pain, but
Hmm.
just continually in this season, get into your face with God
Yeah.
and talk to him. Don't feel, as I said, don't feel like you have to get on your knees. You could be standing in the bathroom in the mirror and say, you know what, God, I'm just having a tough time with this right now. So God, just help me.
Yeah.
And that when God, you tell God, please help me. Whoa, Papa's on. Papa's on. He's coming to help his children. Believe me. God comes and hears the cries of his children.
That is amazing
Mm-hmm.
advice. Um, Ladies, that Amanda just shared with us about talking to God from
Mm-hmm.
our heart, being real with God. And
Mm-hmm.
so, thank you for that advice, Amanda. You
You're
know
welcome.
what? I am just so enlightened and empowered by what you've shared this evening, because what you've shared, it's yes, you were sharing from your journey in terms of being single, but it
Mm-hmm.
also can be applied to other, seasons that people are going through,
That's right.
that they've been waiting for something to shift for however
Mm-hmm.
long, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so this can apply to many different situations,
That's
many
right.
different seasons, many,
Mm-hmm.
and so I am grateful that you said yes, that you took the time to share. And so, Amanda, if anyone wants to contact you through your ministry, can you share that
Mhm.
contact information, please?
Well, a single serving comes on every last Friday of the month. Our next session will be November the 26th, and we do have a special guest that night as well. And it can be viewed via YouTube at CovRemMin, and that's via YouTube. And also, it can be linked off of my Facebook page as well. And if you're also interested, I have a page on Facebook called A Single Serving, and I have some information there as well. So I do post when the sessions are coming up and other little things that I feel like I want to share with you guys, share with the singles. I post it there. So it's A Single Serving on Facebook.
That is great to know. Well, this has been an enlightening time, empowering time, and we could go on
I
and
know.
on, but we've
Yeah,
come to an end,
yeah,
and it has been great. It has been great,
yeah.
ladies. I pray that you have been encouraged, and that some of you who are wanting to connect with Amanda, that you would be able to do so through her
Mhm.
ministry, A Single Serving. And so, thank you, Amanda.
Oh, thank you, Aisha. I just consider it an honor to be a part and just to be interviewed by you tonight. It's an honor. And I thank you for inviting me on. I had a great time
Awesome.
talking with you. And I just hope that your ministry continues to grow and flourish,
Thank you.
and that it'll just continue to draw people in, that they would rise with hope, knowing that God is on their side,
Awesome.
in every area of their life. So it's every Thursday night. Look forward to it. And I know next week, girl, who your guest next week? I know it comes on every Thursday. So who your guest next week?
So, next week, I just love your enthusiasm, Amanda. So, next week, we are happy to have two guests on at the same time, and they are the Sonority sisters, Kelly
Wow.
Zimba and Claire Sems. They are the Sonority sisters, as I said. Kelly is a flutist and Claire is a violinist. And so they're going to share their
Wow.
story of the Sonority sisters and how that was created. Again, more inspirational women.
Mhm.
And so look forward to it. As Amanda said, next Thursday, it's November the 18th, and it will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Well,
Don't miss it, people. It's good.
exactly,
Don't miss
exactly.
it. It's good.
And so we've come to an end, ladies. Thank you for your time
Thank
and
you.
have a good evening.
Have a good
Bye.
evening, everyone.